So next part, what we wanted to do for half an hour, if anybody's not okay with standing up, will you let Tracy know and she'll sort you out with a chair? So we're going to just spend half an hour and we're going to talk about this, this special thing here. So under this sheet here, we have the Mk1 Allet, the serial number 66001. 66 is the year that it was manufactured, and Roy and his father started the business the year before and obviously built the prototypes. So without further ado, we've asked Dave Allett and Roy Allett to unveil our machine for us. So please would you do that for us?
Come on.
You could. So not bad for 1966. We of course have had the machine restored very sympathetically as well, and Jeff's going to be talking about that later. But first, what I would like to do is to pass the microphone over to Roy Allett, who built this machine. I know he doesn't look old enough. It's over to you.
Thanks, Austin. To be truthful, I didn't build it. I was only a lad at the time, but I was involved in it, and I did bits and pieces on it, and I serviced it every year for a long, long while. As Austin said, this one was actually built in 1966, which was the first year of genuine production. Father made several machines in the mid-60s, and some in the early 60s. Garden cultivators, rotary mowers, and of course some cylinder mowers. But it was this 36-inch mower that, I guess it was the birth of a legend for us. The very first example of this model was built the previous year, 1965, with some second-hand parts from various other machines and a second-hand Reliant engine. And everything was handmade, as too was most of this, and for quite a while afterwards, to be honest. But this one was made in 1966. It was the first of a batch of 6, I think, that we made that year. And as I remember it, 1966 was a good year in England for one or two reasons. I can't remember what it was about now, but I think football came into it somewhere. This particular one was sold to a customer. We were garden machinery dealers. Get closer. We were garden machinery dealers before we started manufacturing. And although I was only a lad, I can remember a lot of the... I talked to my dad pretty regularly, often, funnily enough, you know, in workshop at night and in the front room at home. I knew what was going on in his mind, and he'd actually tried to make several prototypes over the years but car engines back then, even the small cars, the Austin 7, the Morris 8, they were big, heavy cast iron engines. When Reliant started making this all aluminium water-cooled engine, it was like a eureka moment for my dad. Hey, we've got to get some of them. But we had to start with a second-hand one because there were no new ones available. Anyway, a domestic customer of ours, one Dr. Harper from Sutton-on-Trent in Nottinghamshire, came in to buy a new 24-inch Atco. He'd got a lot of grass, too much for a 24-inch Atco, and if they lasted 2 seasons, he'd done well. Dad always tried to talk him into buying a 28-inch, but he wouldn't pay for it. But on his way out, he saw me using the prototype of this, cutting the lawn, and all of a sudden, money didn't matter. The checkbook came out, and he wanted that there and then, despite jumping from just over 100 quid to £385 we charged for these. 20 quid for a seat. So he wanted it there and then. He insisted that he got the first one. We couldn't supply him that first prototype. We hadn't any drawings. We didn't have drawings for years. Had no drawings, no jigs, no patterns. So he went away empty-handed, but he did leave us an order, and it was agreed that he would have the very first production model. So this wasn't the first mower that Reg Allett made, it was the first of a production run of machines which has led us to where we are now. I'm lost. What else did I say? Dr. Harper, when he got his machine, he bought it for his lawn. But he took it along to the local cricket club to stripe up the outfield in preparation for a benefit game involving some of the Notts County players. And the pitch looked beautiful. And the good doctor, bless his heart, left the machine at the side of the pitch so everybody could see what had done the job. The Notts County boys were well impressed. They rang the head groundsman, Frank Dallin. He came along and had a look. Pretty soon an order was placed for one for Trent Bridge. The undergroundsman from Trent Bridge, Jim Fairbrother, got the top job at Lord's very shortly after, and he ordered a mower before the ink was dry on his contract. So I guess by then the legend was born, and here we are today. I'm out of action. Can you add?
Thanks very much, Roy, and what an absolute pleasure it is to be here today. So I'm Dave Allett, Roy's brother. I'm not based in the UK, I live in France. I spend most of my time travelling around and I handle our export business. So trips here are quite rare, and it's always an absolute joy for me to come back and see the machines being made, the processes, and of course meet all the guys. So as despite appearances, I'm actually not as old as I look, and when this machine was built, I was around 4 years old. So I can't remember too many details about it. My interest in mowers didn't start until I was around 5. But what I can remember very clearly, Dad actually took a picture of me at that age, standing in the box, peering over the front. Unfortunately, I was not able to find that picture before for this meeting, but unfortunately, but that's the way it is. There are so many memories that I have of travelling around with Dad as a very young boy in my school holidays. And one thing I can remember very clearly was at Austin's already mentioned the Bank of England today, but the Bank of England sports field, and Dad was working on the machine, and there was a petrol leak. The petrol tank was leaking some petrol. The engine was very hot. Suddenly there were flames coming out of the engine. Of course, to my young mind, it scared the living daylights out of me. I turned and ran away as fast as I could. Looked over my shoulder, fully expecting to see Dad running as well, but he was just standing there. He just took a big breath and blew out the fire. Then he turned and looked at me rather quizzically and said, "Where are you going, boy?" Another time I can remember sitting with him in the workshop, and he had a little bit of an accident, very badly cut his hand. Certainly was worthy of a trip to the hospital, but Dad being Dad, he just got some tape, wrapped it around his hand and carried on working. I spent so much time travelling around with Dad at that time, and of course I visited a lot of cricket clubs, which then developed a great interest to me for playing cricket, which I did until an injury stopped that career. I joined Leicestershire County Cricket Club, but all the way through my school cricketing days and then into club cricket, Dad would come along and very proudly have a setup just like Laura here, with a tripod, camera, great big telephoto lens, and he took countless thousands of photos, which we still have tucked away in big boxes somewhere. Yeah, Roy has them. Anyway, that developed my interest in cricket, and all of the matches he was there watching, and he would of course take some time out to visit the groundsman's shed, have a talk to the groundsman, and the next year there was always an Allet mower at that cricket club. Just like to say a word about the name Regal. So we have one of our products, the big machine that we've just been past here in the crate, that's called a Regal, and we're in Regal House now. So our dad's name was Reg Allett, We also supplied machines to Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, some of the royal houses, so there was very much a Regal element to the supplies that we did. And as we're honouring Dad today and their history, I just thought that was a nice little story. So Reg, Allett, Regal, and that's how that name came along. How are we doing with time there, Austin? Is that good? Yes, yeah, that on 5 minutes. We're waiting for the caterers, so I'm going to start singing a song. I tap dance really well.
Roy and Dave, thanks. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you. So the next people I'd like to invite up, Adrian and Dan. Come on up. And also Colin and Adam. Yeah. Now, gentlemen, we've not met before, so I'm not quite sure how this is going to go. Colin, nice to meet you.
I'm Adrian.
Adrian. Dan. Adam, great. So how are we going to start on this? We'll start. I'm going to give you the mic. Yeah.
Hello, I'm chairman of Norrell Cricket Club, which is a small village 6 miles north of Newark. We just used to play on a Sunday, and we were constantly battling about trying to get a mower to cut the grass, and we were fortunate that our landlord said, I know where there's a mower, and he sorted this mower out. I have spoken to the person who last owned it, who was a Stuart Blackburn. He was in the house at Sutton-on-Trent, so it stayed at the house from Dr. Harper to Mr. Bradbury, and then Stuart Blackburn, who donated it to the club. And he remembers it actually working, and then it came to us. So I will then now pass on to Colin, who actually used the mower.
I'm Colin, and I'm the volunteer that cut the grass for Norrell Cricket Club. The first I knew about this mower was one of the lads says, we've got you a new mower to try. So, well, I'll bring it up on Sunday morning then. So, Sunday morning, the JCB Chelly Porter comes up the road with this in the bucket, delivered to the field. So, we got on it and tried it, and on the Sunday morning I mowed the complete field with it. By the time we'd finished, she was getting a little bit warm and blowing a little bit of water out the radiator cap. So but I would imagine that before then it hadn't been used for quite some time, and so they took it back down to the farm in the bucket on the JCB for further sort of development to see what could be made of it, and that was the last I saw of it. But then it went over to Adrian.
Afternoon, everybody. I'm Adrian, local farmer. Played cricket, been chairman and that with Norrell for a long while. And this mower, it was where the cricket ground is. It's about half a mile away from the farm that we use to store things. So it's quite difficult to move it up the road on a regular basis, and we always needed some sort of transport. Towards the end of the season, it wasn't being used, so it came down to my place, which is a bit further away, and was shoved in my workshop underneath horse rugs. It had been there a fair while, and every time I was tidying out the workshop, I had to move the damn thing. So anyway, eventually it went round the back under a pile of horse rugs. And I'd spoken to Adam, who was chairman of the club at the time. What are we going to do with this mower, Adam? It's sort of, I'm always moving it. It's taking up space. We could do with the space. He said, oh, well, can't really get it going. Nobody seems to be bothered about having a go at getting it going. We'll eBay it. We dropped it on eBay, not a lot of interest. So I said to Adam, what we're going to do, shall we weigh it in? So that was, yeah, okay, then let's do that. Get a shilling or two for the club weighing it in. Anyway, it was round the back one time when Dan was there and taking the rugs off, going to dig it out the back of the shed. And Dan says, what are you doing with that then? Well, we're going to weigh it in. Oh, well, I'll have a look at it. And Dan, being a bit of an engineer, I say bit, there, started to have a look at it. So I'll hand you over to Dan now.
It weren't exactly like that, if we're being honest. he already had it scrapped, things in the front of the bucket there, ready to be scrapped. I salvaged it from that point, and I sort of said to her, "Do you know what do you want to do with it?" And he says, "Oh well, try and get it going. We'll see what we can make of it." So I put it in the shed, and then sort of got it going a couple of weeks later, and says to Adrian, "What do you want to do with it?" And he says, "Well, if you can get it going on the key, we'll stick it on eBay." So I had a look round on eBay for parts, couldn't get any parts. So I messaged you guys. Someone, I don't know who it was, said you best speak to Roy. So I messaged Roy, and that's when Roy got very excited at the thought that this could be the prototype at the time. So I sent him some pictures and stuff, and he wasn't sure whether it was a prototype or the first one. And then eventually we took the side panel off and sent him the serial, and he said, "Oh, it's the first one." So I told Adrian, and between these guys, we thought the best thing to do is donate it back to yourselves. So now we're all here.
That's the first time I've heard that whole story as well. So the old girl made it back, and thanks ever so much to all you guys for your generosity as well. And thank goodness you got to speak to Roy, because it means such a lot to the business, but also to the family as well. And we really appreciate you making that contact. So thanks very much, guys. So of course it made its way back here. Steve Cotnell went and picked it up, and we brought it back, and it sat around here. You have all these good intentions. Wouldn't it be great if we could renovate this and we could put it in a reception area, and wouldn't it be fantastic? And of course it sat there and sat. And Sean Etherington, design engineer, said, "Austin, we really need to do something about this." And so Sean said, "Well, Sean, if you want to pick up the project, then that would be really appreciated." And he did. And he pulled a team of people together, and we set a budget for it, and we tried to find someone that was going to renovate it. But it's a bit difficult to do it in the factory, because if we're renovating something like this, we're not making lawn mowers, and that's how we make our living. So we contacted a few people, and eventually we ended up with the amazing Jeff Ravenhall. I'm going to ask Jeff to come up now. Wherever you are. Jeff, here he is. So I've known Jeff for many, many years. He's been involved in the industry one way or the other. But Jeff is from the Vintage Horticultural and Garden Machinery Club, so an expert at this type of thing. Jeff, we need to talk. And so I'm going to hand you over to Jeff, and he's going to tell you what he did.
Thank you, Austin. So I came into the story at Saltex last year, so just about 12 months ago. It all came about because it was the 75-year anniversary of the Institute of Groundsmanship, or I forget what they call themselves now, but that was the main theme. One of our members is the Hall and Duck Trust, who collect pre-war mowers back to Edwardian mowers, and they were putting on a display. But being in the NEC, they had to have an enormous amount of public liability insurance, which, since I'm chairman of the Vintage Horticultural and Garden Machinery Club, we know we carry. So it ended up as a joint stand at the NEC last year. And you may have seen us with quite a collection of old Victorian Edwardian mowers. And Andrew was there, and cleared up on the Thursday night. Never thought anything more of it. The following week, Andrew has an email that he forwarded to me because he didn't quite know what to do with it, and it was about this mower. And we talked. He decided that it was too really new to fit with his remit, which is no newer than 1939. So he thought about it, and I can't quite work out how I got lumbered, but it sort of came to me in the end. There was one or two other people were mentioned at the time, and yes, I filled the gap. But that's how that came about. I came up to have a look at it back in the spring and thought, well, it's remarkably original. With the other machinery that I restore, I'd say, well, 20 years ago, the trend would have been, yeah, let's strip it down, shot blast it, repaint it, glossy paint, make it look like new. That's great. But when it's as original as this, it's only original once. And once that's gone, it's gone forever. The trend these days is to preserve what's there. And you look at a lot of shows nowadays, especially with the tractor shows and things like that. And if it's original and reasonably well preserved, you know, wipe it with an oily rag and make it look all of its age, rather than trying to make it look new. Because, well, quite honestly, a lot of the machines from 20 years ago looked newer than they would have been when they were new. And you could probably understand that. They were all two-pack painted and shiny and everything else. And they were never like that, even when they were brand new. So I think the trend these days for preservation, rather than trying to make it look new, is the right way to go. And that's the remit that Austin gave me. He said it is too original to destroy that. And so I was asked to restore it, make it work, make it reliable, start on the key, etc., etc. But make it look old. Make it wear its age with pride. And that's even more difficult than trying to repaint it with new paint, believe me. And well, I'm not going to repeat some of the swear words that I've learned, but I certainly taught myself quite a few new swear words in the process. The mechanical side of it, I can do that all day long with my eyes shut, as probably many of you can. The difficult part is trying to bring off this age thing, trying to match the paint to original. Some parts of it were beyond saving, so you've got to put new paint on it, but it's got to match all the rest of the paint. And they make it look so easy on Repair Shop, don't they, on the BBC? And I like watching that, as much as you lot do, but they don't have to make it look easy. You try doing it yourself. God, it's it is not easy. I can say that. But there's one or two things came up during the restoration that I wasn't too sure of, for which I'm really grateful to Roy on the other end of the phone. And it was just a case of picking the phone up. Roy, how'd you do this? And it came out an absolute mine of information. And how he stores all that in his head, I do not know, but I'm grateful for your help all along, Roy. But we've got it to this stage now where it's clean, it's tidy, it's got no oil leaks, it starts, it runs. It doesn't look that old. It's, the things that have been put on it have been put on sympathetically, and really, I've quite enjoyed it. What else can I say?
What was the most difficult thing, Jeff?
It's the paint matching. But yeah, but what I would say is I was quite surprised, because normally when you do a mower like this, the first thing that takes any damage is the grass box. And talking to Austin and Roy over the last few months, they only made a few of these grass boxes with the plywood sides with the aluminium wrap around them. And that is the original grass box. And I'm sure most of you would know that a machine of this size has been used for professional use on a cricket club or whatever, it's going to take a few knocks on the front of that grass box, and there's no dents. And I just could not see myself repairing that or respraying it or anything else, because it's testament to its age. You'll find the inside, there's very little paint left on it, but that's what happens when they're old. As I say, it's wearing its age, hopefully with pride, and I didn't want to make it look brand new. So judge for yourself what's, if you like it or you don't, but this is how I restore my machinery now, and it seems to be the trend. But what more can I say?
Thank you so much, Jeff. That's a real talent that you have there, and you captured exactly what we wanted to achieve on this. We didn't want a brand new machine, and the vision was we're going to put it in our reception area. You'll be able to see it later because we're going to drive that out in a minute. Dave, did you want to say a few words?
I just wanted to add to that. I said that I don't come back to the factory very often. My last visit here was actually just over a year ago, when the machine had just arrived back. It didn't look quite as nice as it does now, it has to be said. And what I wanted to do was thank you very, very much for everything you've done from the Allett family, the Allett company, and I would like to shake your hand. That's from my dad.
Thank you.
Okay.
Lovely words, Dave. Thank you. Oh, are we going to make a battery version? Yes. Not this particular one. She's retired now, right? But yes, watch his space. Great.